It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay's back along with Rene and Andy. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift, the new Apple Music, iOS 9, OS 10 El Capitan, and a whole lot more. You stay here. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 460, recorded Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015. Never rent to rock, people. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Sundance Now Doc Club, the new streaming service for everyone who loves documentaries. Discover unforgettable films like Hoop Dreams. To get a free 30-day trial, go to docclub.com/MacBreak. That's docclub.com/MacBreak. And by LegalZoom. If you're looking to incorporate, form an LLC, get a trademark or more, LegalZoom can help you get started the right way. LegalZoom's not a law firm, but can connect you with an independent attorney. Visit LegalZoom.com and use the offer code MBW in the referral box at checkout this month for your special discount. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover all the Apple news, and there's a lot of it. Look who's back. I don't know where he's been. Chasing rhinos, probably in Rwanda. Alex Lindsay of the Pixel Corps, the founding father of MacBreak. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Missed you.
I missed being here.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that when you're not on it and then you listen to it, you're like, oh, I had something to say there.
I know.
So now I have something to say.
All right.
To the chagrin of some of our listeners, but
No, we like to hear everything you have to say. That's Rene Ritchie over on his right. He is, of course, or left to you. He is, of course, MrImore.com, Mr. Mobile Nations. Great to see you at Rene Ritchie on the Twitter.
So happy to have Alex back. Can't stop staring at him.
Looking over your shoulder. Alex. That's Andy Ihnatko. He's the Gauton's fisherman, Gauton's of Gloucester. You're kind of in the yellow. You kind of could be in a slicker.
Okay, fine. I'll change my hat.
No, I like it. I like it.
I see. I was as you were doing the introduction, I realized, oh, geez, I didn't realize I've got a yellow hat and a yellow shirt. I wonder if I could sneak off and switch my hat before I'm introduced.
He's the Gauton's
Maybe no
fisherman.
one will notice, but someone noticed now. And I too am glad that Alex is back. My head saw the schedule and said Alex is coming back. My head said, but I best not tell my heart because it's so easily broken.
It is.
We will let our heart discover it if it truly will happen. Thank you, Alex. So glad to see you again.
It's really, really good to be back.
Alex has broken up with us more time than John Mayer has broken up with Taylor Swift.
I haven't broken up.
No, you didn't break up. No, of course not. Nor did Taylor with Apple. What a strange story. I feel like there's so much more to this story than they're telling us, don't you? Taylor Swift on Sunday posted a blog post. We talked a lot about it on This Week in Tech. To Apple, love Taylor. And like 5 minutes later, Eddie Q, the post was to please Apple. I'm not going to put my music on your new music service because you shouldn't be doing 3 months free and not pay anybody for the 3 months free, which was apparently, I guess, Apple's plan. Others had protested. Adele's label, an indie label in Britain, had protested. But when Taylor does it, man, those Swifties, within about, I don't know, a couple of hours, Eddie Q was on the phone to Taylor, apparently. He said he'd been talking to her. And then later that night, he tweeted, okay, we'll pay. Well, now that story on Recode says we'll pay Taylor Swift, but I presume he means we'll pay everybody.
It's funny, they kept saying artists in the discussion as though artists were because these deals, it wasn't that Apple wasn't going to pay us. They'd come to deals with record labels saying that they wouldn't be paying for the first 3 months. And while the discussion was focused on artists, you've got to imagine they're not paying artists. And in large portion, they are paying record labels, and the artists will get whatever their deals state they'll get.
That's what pisses me off, because really, Taylor, you know better than that. It's your freaking label.
Well, it does trickle down to the. I mean, the not getting paid.
But who made that deal? The labels. Her label made that deal.
Well, and this is not a minor offer from Apple. We want to make sure people get what the numbers.
How much is that going to be? Do we know?
If if the by my calculation, and I'm what I'm looking at is Apple said they're trying to hit 100 million. Let's just say they do. They're gonna do a big push for that first 3 months, and they actually get 100 million people, and they actually don't pay $10 a month, and they actually would have paid 70%. That's like over $2 billion. That's a big chunk of what they paid for Beats.
Yeah, but 100 million is ridiculously optimistic. You think that's
ridiculous? Also, they're not paying the full rate for they're going to pay what they call streaming prices for before you subscribe. When you subscribe, revenue share kicks in, but the free listeners are going to get what they call a streaming fee, and nobody seems to know what that means, but it could be in the tens, if not high tens, if not maybe triple.
Well, here's the deal. We know that Spotify says they've paid $3 billion total over the entire life of Spotify to the labels. Tim Westergren at Pandora, what did he say? $1 billion last year. Those are both. I mean, that's 75 million free streamers on Spotify. That's 100 million streamers on Pandora. So it's $1 billion. Let's say it's $1 billion.
Well, and the thing is that now, if the record companies are smart, they are going to promote the heck out of it. And this is why my conspiracy theory hat goes on, is that if the record, after all this PR, if the record companies are smart, they're going to push everybody to Apple Music, because there is no cost for the listener to jump in for 3 months, and they get money out of it. Yeah. Like, this is the record companies right now can print money from this. Now,
so are you thinking that this was the plan all along?
No. It's like the old saying, but the executive who was responsible for New Coke asking, "Hey, is this just a PR campaign to promote Coke?" And he said, "We're not that smart. We're not that stupid either." I do believe that the speed at which this decision came in, at least close to the Taylor Swift post, I think that does underscore that this whole question about, are we going to pay out money for the first 3 months of users, that inside of Apple, I believe that was a very, very hotly argued topic, that it wasn't a decision that was made on universal consensus, and that I believe that at the end, that decision was made, said, look, we got to make this decision, let's just go this way, and whatever happens. I do think that even after the announcement was made, it could have tipped one way or another. And I believe that Apple deciding that, given that there were pros and cons of each way, they're advocates at the top for either direction. They said that if we cave in right now, when we have this incredibly critical launch in less than a week from now, this will not be the discussion about whether or not we're screwing over independent artists. It will be a discussion about Apple Music, and that's what I think happened.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for Apple Music. I mean, it's costly, but it's potentially costly.
Yeah, they've already spent a lot of money on Beats. They're already spending a lot of money down the path. They can afford to do this. This is and here's the thing: is that if the music industry figures out that they can just cash in on this, and if the artists all push it, and everyone pushes it, Apple could end up paying out more money in the first 3 months than Spotify paid its entire history. True. And that is a PR bundle for Apple that is worth the money they're spending on that.
Yeah, if 100 million people sign up, that's good.
They really do. They really are consistently trying to fight the idea that a free service is a business that any real business is going to get into. It should be said, though, that Spotify does pay out their artists even on behalf of people who are using the free layer. The difference is that they're not getting. They're essentially, they get credit for ad revenue that is sold to these free listeners, and that is added to the main pile of money that's coming in from per play clicks. From the rest of the service. So it's Apple was on thin ice here. And another part of the problem was that, and this is probably unfair, but humanity is not fair, when the most widely quoted figures about Apple is how close to $200 billion in actual workable money that they have on hand. It's hard for them it becomes harder for them to explain, here's why we don't feel like paying out money for the 3 months worth of content that we're actually using. That's, again, it's an emotional argument that people are making against Apple, but it can be an effective one, and it might be one that Apple decided, if we write a check, this goes away. Let's just write the check and make it go away.
Just to add to what Andy was saying, I heard the same thing, that it was highly contentious, at the top levels, and that people were arguing about it even up to the last minute when Eddie was making his tweets. And but it's also important to understand this shows us several things. Apple Music is incredibly important to Apple as a company. It's not just a product that they want to use to sell iPhones. You can witness that by seeing the Android app is coming for it. Apple Music is a big deal, and people care about it at the very highest level of Apple, which is probably why you get the senior vice president of iTunes or of internet services on Twitter at that late at night on a Sunday. But also it is a discussion. It's not like evil people versus good people. There are people who think that maybe if Apple throws their money at this, and Apple really does believe down to their core that they need 3 months. They were willing to sacrifice a lot of things to get this 3-month trial, but that if they just throw money at it, they might get government oversight the way they got it with ebooks, or the way they're already being looked at by states attorneys general for music. There's sometimes when Apple feels that money alone can't solve a problem, that whether you believe that the DOJ lawsuit over ebooks was prompted or not, or whether you think that states attorneys general should already be looking at Apple Music or not, they have that fear in them now that just money makes them a target for things. So it's not always a cut and dry, just throw our money at it either.
It's interesting. Taylor obviously would make a great diplomat because even from the title of the post on right through it, it's all about, I love you, Apple. You're great. You're ingenious. You're innovators. You push the right boundaries. It's just this one little thing. So it was, I almost feel like she kind of knew she'd win this battle, and she certainly knew that Apple would still be an important part of her music strategy. She also says something very strange. She says at the end, we don't ask for free iPhones. Please don't ask us to provide you with our music. I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift has never paid for an iPhone. And in fact, maybe she doesn't have to ask, but every artist in the industry gets free iPhones. Give me a break.
Well, I think the label sends it to her, then they charge them 4 times as much for it against her account. But it's about,
the labels are the bad guys here, and I think this whole discussion really bypasses the real problem here, which is the record labels. And the only guy at Apple who feels bad about this at this point is the guy who spent 8 months of his life negotiating this deal with the record labels, only to see it thrown out the window the minute Taylor
there was
Swift.
An accountant at Apple who was going, we're really going to pay for all the iTunes stuff for 3 months for free on this as well. I've got a server I've got to make.
I mean, don't you think Apple worked hard to get to they're paying 71.5% instead of 70% to the record labels? That was part of the deal. And what we'd like to have this free for 3 months. Don't you think that was a big negotiation they had with the labels?
Yeah.
And Jiminy, what is that?
There's the lightning storm is right over top of my head right now.
I'm scared.
So,
oh my God!
I was about to jump under the table.
Alex is going to turn to the flash right in front of us.
The lightning bolt it was instantaneous to the sound, which means that it must be right here.
Yeah.
There's flash flood warnings.
You start
but I'm on
one
the
Mississippi.
Third floor, so
yeah. Oh.
As long as the server doesn't get. There we go. Here comes another one.
Are you in Pittsburgh? Where are you?
I am. I'm in Pittsburgh. Yeah, we get a lot of rain here, unlike California.
Did you sacrifice to the thunder god lately? I would.
I have not. I think I probably should have.
I think you might.
Yeah, it's a little.
So people are saying Taylor Swift has her own label. She has her own imprint under a real label. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this letter, and it's well, the difficulty of any of us trying to discuss this is that we don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
We don't know what the legal repercussions they have, or any of the stuff that they signed is. But the thing that occurred to me reading this is that there was, no matter what was going on, there was absolutely no downside to Taylor Swift's people posting this, where either this would affect actual change, in which, hey, look how great and respected Taylor Swift's word is, or nothing would happen, in which she is seen sticking up for independent musicians. Either way, it's good stuff for her to do. And in terms of self-interest, there's certainly going to be a larger self-interest of a kind, but
listen to what
you can't think that this was a problem that she needed to solve for herself by
no, and that she says that, and she's obviously doing fine.
Yeah.
Tom Conrad, who's the CTO at Pandora, had a series of 8 tweets. He's pretty angry. He starts Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, and all others pay artists for their free tiers and trials. It's the right thing to do. Swift took her new album off Spotify not because she's not paid, but because she feels their free service, quote, devalues music. Swift never pulled from YouTube, which is the most popular free service, and certainly devalues music if Spotify does. Swift's career was built on terrestrial radio play, which is a free service. And people don't necessarily understand this. I know you do, Alex. Doesn't pay recording artists. They only pay the publishing rights. The ASCAP BMI fees go to the songwriter or whoever owns the copyright. Apple isn't getting rid of its long free trial and is now going to pay artists. This simply puts it at parity with everyone else. Reminder, Apple uses music to make billions off hardware. Artists see nothing from this. Swift's letter, and this is the important part, and Apple's response is mostly theater. Nothing here to suggest that Apple treats artists more fairly than anyone else. My point is this. There's too much animus between artists and Silicon Valley. We shouldn't herald this move as progress. It's status quo. And my point is the artists should embrace Silicon Valley and get rid of the labels because that's the predator here, not Apple.
Yeah, I mean, especially someone who's, especially people at opposite ends of their careers. If you're an established band, you can certainly make so much money off of touring that you can essentially turn your album business into a hobby where it has to, just like Apple treats certain services as this is not where we're getting our revenue from. This increases the value of our mainline businesses. Also, if you're starting off in this business and you're not used to making money anyway, why give up 95% of the money being generated by your work? Why not take 88% of it and do it that way? It's the people in the middle that might get have a problem. But the larger message that if anybody in this industry needs to take anything away, if artists need to take anything away, it's that you have to really move to find a way to build your business so that streaming makes a whole lot of sense to you, because it's just the direction that every single consumer is going. The reason why everybody was quote unquote giving away stuff for free on radio 50, 60 years ago is because this is the way the business works. This is how you attract people to the money line, and this is where people are discovering new music. No, people aren't buying CDs. They're not buying digital downloads. They are streaming and subscribing to streaming services. And if you want that kind of attention, you have to basically change your entire business or invent your business so that streaming makes sense to you. You don't have a choice about that. Just like newspapers and magazines, they cannot pretend that there are no iPads and there's no web browsers out there. You can do that, have fun for the next 2.8 months before you get bought by AOL.
And then there's freelance photographer Jason Sheldon, who's a concert photographer. He goes to concerts kind of on spec. Publications will say, can you get some shots of that concert and maybe we'll buy them. He says Taylor's agreement, which photographers are required before they're allowed to shoot at her concerts, basically say she owns the rights to everything you take, every picture you take, and that you know the copyright is hers, and you can if you're lucky enough to sell it to the original publication, the requesting publication, that's fine, but you cannot do anything else with it after that. And he feels like Taylor Swift is doing the same thing to photographers that she claimed Apple was doing to recording artists. I don't know how that.
Humans are funny. Like, one of the things I noticed is that everyone on Twitter, at least when I was following it, was saying that either the artist should suck it up or that Apple should pay. And almost no one said, hey, why can't we start paying for the music immediately if we want to? Why can't we pay for this
There
stuff?
you go.
Because nobody wants to pay for content anymore. They always want someone else to pay for them.
That's a really good
Apple's
point.
a great target. The recording artists are a great target. It happens with apps. It happens with websites. It happens, like, we go through this with podcasts.
That's a very excellent point.
Can I just make a point? I do think that there's a lot of sense in what you say. I also think there's a lot of sense in comparing it to you're going out to eat with three friends of yours. One of these friends makes $1.8 billion a year. The rest of you are doing okay. He wants to stiff the waitress for a tip. And he tells the rest of the table, well, look, if you want to tip them 40% to make up for what I'm not going to kick in, why don't you go ahead and do that?
I understand all that. And I think that this move from Apple's part is absolutely, they could not buy this. It would be, the best way to put it for me is that this is a huge investment for Apple. Paying off artists has so many returns to them that it should be a no-brainer. But I'm continuously surprised, and you hear it every day, developers talking about how they can't make sustainable businesses on anybody's app store. Amazon was toying with subscription app services as part of Prime. You have this race to the bottom where you want these streaming services, but I don't know if Apple pays the artists or not, if 100 million people sign up or not. I still don't know if it's going to be sustainable. I don't know if content blockers are going to hurt websites. I don't know if podcasts are going to make enough. All of this goes back to, as individuals, we don't want to pay for this stuff anymore, but we still want it produced at a very high level. And I think all of us are struggling to find those models.
But I think a lot of people are willing to pay their $10 a month. In fact, for me, the family edition is going to drop my cost in streaming. So $14.99 for 6 people is going to be a lot less than I'm paying now.
If Spotify, which they said they will, does the same thing, would that change your tune, or are you going to Beats no matter what?
No, I'm leaving Spotify, and the number one reason I'm leaving Spotify is because every time I turn on my phone, I have to go into settings and turn off social. So like I don't want to share with anyone what I'm playing because I don't want to admit how often I listen to Katy Perry or Taylor Swift or anything else. And
I'm proud of that. I liked it.
You listened to Katy Perry and you liked it.
No, but I don't. I hate that. I hate that I have to do that every single time. I don't want to share that, and they will not leave it off. They leave it off for 6 hours, and it makes me so angry that I hate Spotify. So like it's. So I listen to it because it's a thing, but it is like this thing that I just wish I do not understand why they do that. Like I just don't understand why as a user I can't turn it off and say I don't want to be tracked.
Probably most people want it, but maybe not.
I guess. Well, but the thing is, if it just switched off and then stayed off, we'd all be friends.
Why do you keep? Now I have to look at mine. You have to keep turning it off?
Yeah, it turns back on every 6 hours if you don't use it.
Wow.
And so the thing is that one little switch is why I'm leaving Spotify. Is that it's just that this annoying thing that I have to do.
Oh, I see. You turn on a private session each time. But you could turn off publish activity, and then it will not share your activity.
It will not share it to
Spotify.
It'll still share it to Spotify.
So but you could also unattach Facebook to Spotify, right?
No. It won't. Like if you turn off all the sharing, it won't put it on Facebook, but it will put it on anyone following you on Spotify.
Or you could turn that off too. It says right here.
Okay, well I haven't. At least on mine, it looked like you needed to have that there. So I could
turn
be totally
turn
wrong.
off. So there's two settings in the social. There's private session, which lasts until you're inactive for 6 hours, right? But then underneath it, publish activity, and you turn that off. That's the one where it shares my activity and what I listen to with my followers on Spotify. If you turn that off, you won't be sharing that.
Because I've never understood why it just doesn't.
And then you could turn off Facebook show activity. Yeah, you could turn these off, Alex. Get in your settings.
All right, well, there you go.
You could turn them both off. But he still doesn't. He's still going to Apple Music. I guarantee you. I guarantee you.
That's
mostly because I still don't understand. I again, like for me, I would just be able to turn that all the way off and know that it's off. That's all. I just don't like sharing.
I think you can. Go check your socials.
I'll check the social. I know it won't go to the other ones. It's just mostly the Spotify.
Yeah,
thing
there's a setting for that.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
That maybe maybe they changed it. It might be the new Spotify because I'm using the new Spotify because our podcasts are on there.
No, there's buttons in here. I'll check it out. Yeah. So it's hard to check your own session as to whether you're being shared to yourself. Right. So anyway, but I think that I do think that the Apple service is going to be. I mean, it's going to push Spotify to put in a lot more.
They'll do a family plan.
Add a lot more features.
Yeah,
the big problem that all these companies are going to have is if for some reason Apple is as successful as their goal, it's going to be very hard to catch up.
Hey, here's a question. Dallas says, does Apple Music allow streaming of music that contains explicit lyrics?
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Yeah. But I think that if Apple gets to 100 million, I don't see how, if they did, I'm not saying they will. It's probably, but again, we have this odd situation now where Apple, and I agree with Rene, I think Apple could not, without pressure from an external source, I think if they had just gone ahead and paid for it, there would have been all kinds of...
Because of the DOJ.
Yeah, I think there would have been all kinds of issues. But seeing that public pressure and then saying, oh, okay, I think that actually is something they very much needed, which might be why they reacted so quickly.
Right.
But I think that because I think that this may turn out to be key. This 3 months that no one has to pay for it, that all the artists and all the record companies have a vested interest in getting money from people who aren't paying, getting full payment, it could be very expensive for Apple. But at the same time, if they actually get to even 20 million, 30 million, at that point, it becomes very, very difficult for some of these other services to keep up. I know that we think that we'd like to have it, but you're talking about once they get to a certain size, what they have is they now have all those efficiencies of being able to do exclusives and and they have some of that anyway, but they can do lots of exclusives. And what happens is the whole industry starts paying attention to who's the largest in the largest game. And the industry will become very, very, they'll basically start, whenever those contracts expire with Spotify, if Apple gets bigger than Spotify, all those contracts with Spotify will take everything off the free version. They won't do it yet. But
I think Apple is going to definitely influence the industry. Already, Google today launched a free music streaming service. This is basically Songza, which Google acquired. It'll be ad-supported. Originally, you had to be a member, pay for Google All Access to get these streams. Now you can get them for free. Out on Android today. It'll be out soon on iOS. It is out also on the web. And it's... See, I use Google Music and Spotify because Spotify doesn't let me put my own collection up there, which I like. I want the Beatles, so there's the advantage of Google. All right. Well, I think this is a very interesting landscape. Rene, you said an interesting thing, though. Something I've said, but then others have disagreed with. I think this is important for Apple.
Oh, no, it is absolutely. They consider this a huge priority as a company. They really believe that music is in Apple's DNA and that they're not part of the current conversation.
Is it financially critical?
No. In fact, I think that if someone's looking at this purely financially, Apple could be hugely successful without having a music product. But I think Apple is just so intrinsically tied to music that they consider it a point of pride, maybe.
I see.
At an executive level, that they want to be in music and they want to do it well.
How much do they make on iTunes selling? I mean, is it a good business for Apple? For a long time, they said we don't make anything.
Yeah, and if you count the App Store now, I mean, the App Store has been on a continual rise, and it's hard to. I don't know if they break out the numbers, but they were underpaying. They were trying to subsidize movies for a while. They do a lot to sort of eat the costs for entertainment at times, and I'm sure they've made good money on it over the years, but it's not their current growth trajectory.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the ecosystem is really important too. I mean, I think a really, really strong song, music subscription leads to a really, really strong video subscription. So I think that it as part of a brick, building blocks of stuff. I think that as an ecosystem, it's important for Apple not to lose that.
It's also critical for millennials. Apple needs to continue to grow in the under 25s.
And it's culturally important. I mean, that's part of the reason for Beats. Apple used to be the earpods that everybody saw and the iPod that everybody wore, and now it's the Beats logo around your neck. And to be culturally important, I think you need some of that aspect.
Yeah, I think that part of it is making sure that you spend as much time inside the Apple ecosystem as possible, not just so that you're all the money's coming in from every single source, but to make sure that you're providing a consistent, seamless experience, no matter where this user wants to go or what they want to do. Totally agree with Rene that I think they also just think that they are a company that is intrinsic into the arts, and so they want to be they want to continue to be associated with music. They want to, I'm sure, be more involved in live music than they are today because they feel as though that's very much part of their DNA. An interesting difference, though, is that I feel a little bit sorry for companies like Spotify and Pandora because they have to make money off of their music service. Not only that, but they have to make a lot of money off of their music service. Whereas with Apple and Google, they're not running it as a hobby. They're not running it at a loss. But so long as it makes an okay profit, it fits in large. It fits in great with their larger portfolio, and that's a big stick to not to at least to shake at Pandora and Spotify.
Well, and I think also I don't think Apple needs it to make money anytime soon. I think that it could lose money for a long time before Apple gave up.
Yeah, remember the App Store was, they described it as being a little bit profitable, but not really a cash cow. And then that changed pretty damn quickly.
Is Apple's chipset business profitable? I mean, they don't even look at it that way. There's no profit and loss across the organization for them. And this is part of the deal.
I really would like to see Apple. We're seeing this happen. And what's happening in the television business is very interesting. This over-the-top stuff, the ability for content creators to sell directly to consumers, bypassing the big cable companies.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be an interesting analogy for Apple to do the same? Over-the-top music. Let's bypass these predatory labels who have historically ripped off artists and I'm not saying Apple should become a label. Eliminate the concept of a label and let Apple sell directly to artists sell directly to customers. Apple could do that and do it so well.
And I think that Apple's going that direction where they're going to actually provide, they're talking about artists large and small being able to promote themselves. And again, if that ecosystem gets really large, it makes it like the App Store. I mean, now a lot of people say you can't make a living on App Store. Well, there are definitely people making a living on the App Store.
Apple should go to Taylor Swift and say, we forget your label. We want to distribute your music.
All that money you wanted us, we'll just give it to you.
We'll give it directly to you.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if any artist would really want to sign up for that because think about, for instance, the difference between
what does the label do for them?
I'm saying no. I'm not defending labels. I'm saying that this is your business. This is where you're going to be keeping a roof over your head and food in your kids' mouths from, and you have person A who's saying, I have never ever been in this business before, and I've got 100 different businesses. I decided to make it 101. But trust me, we'll figure this out over the next 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years. And by the time someone signs up with us in 5 years, we'll really get this. But we really want to practice on you and your career.
I think
there'd be more people saying, why don't, instead of signing with you, I hire a couple of consultants who have more experience in doing this business than Apple.
Yeah, and I think, and as someone who admittedly I used to work for a label, Sony, and we used to work, with alternative rock artists mostly. And I what I will say is that is not that labels don't do anything, just in their defense. Artists are artists, and labels are the business that makes them money. I mean, because there are a handful of artists. There are definitely artists out there, Annie DeFranco, Pompaloose, other people who understand their business model well enough to implement it and make money at it and make a living at it. But the vast majority of artists, I don't think, are in that space. They get to a point, and some of them are. Taylor Swift is probably a good example of someone who's very savvy in that area. But there's a lot of things that refine the artist, refine that process, promote it. There's a lot of work there has been a lot of work to do the grassroots. So it's not all artists will be able to be successful without some kind of support network that makes that possible. But I do think that Apple is going to open the door for the ones that can figure that out, that can build their own organic audience to be successful. So there's different classes of artists, and I think some artists don't need the labels, and I think some artists.
I think Apple, if they want this to succeed, needs to. I think right now, the fate of Spotify, Pandora, and I guess Apple is held in the hands of the labels, because the labels control the music, and these services only exist as long as the labels allow them to. The minute and there's really 5 big labels. The minute these labels say, forget it, they're out of business. They're literally out of business. Every one of us stops subscribing. So
What's interesting, though, is that they're going to play to the labels for a while, but we should remember that between Iovine, Dre, and Trent Reznor, what you have are actually 3 producers, that can produce music.
Yeah, that's not a label. I understand.
It's not a label, but what I'm saying is if Apple decided to do their own, start doing their own stuff and managing their own process, they have 3 people in the company now that are some of the best in the world at doing that. They didn't come from just doing business deals. I mean, these guys really understand the music industry, and so to get back to your point, they can definitely provide that opportunity. But Apple now has the capacity internally to do their own, direct to Apple Music service.
I don't think artists use the labels to do their business. They have business managers to do their business. Because if you didn't, you're really giving you're letting the lion rule the roost here. To mix metaphors terribly.
Well, some of them do. I mean, some of them definitely. as they get larger, they end up with managers. But a lot of times, I mean, these little.
Well, that's a huge mistake, and I think you can ask the Chambers brothers and a million other people. Was that a good idea to let the label tell you what your deal was going to be?
It's not.
It's not.
No, it's not.
I'm reading the Beatles book. They got the standard royalty was a penny per record on 85% of the revenue. So when they released their first big hit, Love, Love Me Do, they made each 30 pounds for sales of 68,000 records. And that was normal. It still is normal. In fact, one of the reasons Michael Jackson owned the Beatles' music was because they never had the copyright. It immediately the publishing rights and the copyrights immediately went to the publishing house. So this is historically a horrible deal for artists. In the old days, you needed it because who had the record studios? The labels did. Don't need to pay for $100,000 recording studio anymore. You could do it on your Mac. They did marketing. Well, that made sense when you had radio stations. I do. You used to do that, didn't you, Alex? You were a music director.
I was a music director.
You'd go to music
director and a marketing.
Yeah.
And did marketing on the other side as well. And so it was definitely, that was a lot of work there to get.
Yeah, but do you think they still do that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely do that.
Right.
Yeah, but it does shorten this. Again, one large service. I think that has enough people in it that builds an ecosystem of people who are buying, and that's something that Apple can probably get pretty good at. Definitely provides a real opportunity for artists to do very, very well on their own. Like just being able to release, get a following through their videos, through postings, through
there's an opportunity here for somebody to like a Jonathan Colton to say, hey, I know how to do this. Yep. Here's what you do. You do this, you do this, you do this. To new artists. If I were a new artist, really, if you were a new artist, would you sign with a label today?
No. I think it just depends on the artist, but I'd say 85%, I would say no.
Yeah, if you're a cartoonist, you don't want your strip to be in a syndicate. You're
Same
just
thing,
gonna take
right?
You're going to take the Scott Kurtz model or the penny arcade model.
Yeah. So maybe Apple's not the right company to do this, but I think if Apple really wanted to look out for artists, there's an opportunity here. Let's go whatever the equivalent is in music of over the top.
Model.
Let's do it. App Store model. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be, I think we're definitely
program,
going to see some rags to riches, kind of folks where you have, just like the App Store, there's a lot of people that don't make money at it, but there are a handful of people that were programming away in in Vietnam and suddenly have money coming in that they don't know what to do with.
To quote a line from the movie 1776, most people would rather fight to protect the chance that they will become rich than to face up to the reality that they are poor. I mean, it's the great thing about the way the content is created these days is that you feel as though there are a lot of things you can't control, but it's step one of a 100-step process, and anybody can get in line. It's like the U.S. Open, where anybody in the country can compete to be the best golfer, to be the winner of this prestigious tournament, because it is literally open to amateurs and professionals. You're probably not going to make it, but there is that possibility. And every time I go onto YouTube and I see, oh, well, that's kind of a weird video. It's like, oh, I wonder why this person. Oh, look, they've got 5.2 million viewers, and each video gets 1.1 million views minimum. It's like the internet is full of world famous people that almost nobody's ever heard of, and they're making very, very good livings directly creating content for the audience of that thing. I spent 2 hours last night watching Ben Hex solder things on a big 50-inch TV because I like to watch Ben Hex solder things.
Absolutely.
And I'm absolutely thrilled if by watching this I in any way allow him to continue to solder things on video for my enjoyment. It's okay that nobody else knows who he is. It's okay that he can go into any Red Robin and simply be served a burger and fries without being bothered by anybody or being asked to sign an Arduino board. It's a brand new world, and people who are above the age of 40 might not intuitively understand that these possibilities are open to anybody.
And I think that you're always going to have, with all of these things, this different set of people. Like, we've worked with a lot of YouTube stars, and the one thing that we've learned to a person is that they are machines. I mean, they understand exactly how they're getting that viewership. I haven't worked with any of them that did it by accident. And they tweet, they plan things, they know exactly when all the stuff's going to come out, the timing, what time of day to release it in.
I'll vouch for that. I mean, even I, who produce a lot of content and have a fairly robust business, have never figured out how to do it on YouTube.
Yeah,
ever. And we get a few thousand views. That's it.
But there's a lot of people who are but there's other people who just want to do their thing. They just want to make their content, and they don't want to figure out how to promote it. And that's where maybe not labels, but some kind of PR firm or other things can be very useful.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with lots more to talk about. Thank you, Taylor Swift, for the last half hour.
We love you.
It's funny because we did this also. We talked a lot about it on Twitter, but Apple hadn't changed their tune as we went to press, so to speak. And Tom Merritt managed to get in about 18 Taylor Swift puns that I didn't get because apparently I'm just not.
Did you see the New York Times headline, Leo?
No.
If you're gonna play, you better pay.
Yeah, that's another one, isn't it?
Oh, the gray lady decided to put on a backwards baseball cap. It's not very pretty.
I best get up to date on the Taylor Swift oeuvre. But first, let's talk about documentaries. Our brand new sponsor, Sundance Doc Club. I bet you every one of you loves documentaries. I certainly do. I love the idea of looking into the lives of people and kind of seeing what's the same, what's different, getting inspired. I want you to go to docclub.com/MacBreak. We've got a 30-day free trial. This is a really wonderful service. And by the way, I've put together a little collection of 5 of my favorite documents on Doc Club documentaries. Hoop Dreams, you guys know that one, of course. And I was as I was picking these, we were watching the Golden State Warriors win the NBA championship, and it was fun to think about these high school students and follow them as they kind of attempt to live their hoop dreams. I really enjoyed that. If you like sushi, even if you don't like sushi, you've got to see Jiro Dreams of Sushi. This is a Michelin 3-star chef in his 80s whose sushi restaurant is in the subway station at Ginza. It has about 10 seats. And the super slow-mo of the tasting menu as they go through course by course will make you very, very hungry. I also picked some less-known ones like this Bert Stern. He's the guy who did, they call him the original madman. He was the guy who did the last shoot of Marilyn Monroe, and they talk a lot about that. But they also talk about some of the iconic advertising he did. He brought vodka to America in the 50s. In the 50s, nobody drank vodka. Smirnoff wanted to introduce it. He took some very famous photos in Egypt in the desert that put vodka on the map. Just fun to see. Anyway, here's the deal. If you like documentaries, and I know you will, you can go right now to .club.com/MacBreak and have 30 days free to watch all the documentaries. And there's so many good ones. I'm just scratching the surface. They also have some great picks from other people. Susan Sarandon does her picks. Ira Glass of This American Life does his picks. Dan Savage does his picks. There's heroes.
I'm so glad you picked that movie because when it's not only this guy who is like a master at sushi, but then they interview the rice merchant who is also like the greatest rice merchant in the world, who tells the story about how other merchants want to buy the same kind of rice that Hero buys, and he says, "You think that you have the skill to prepare this rice properly. I will not sell you the best rice in the world because you will not prepare it correctly."
It's also a family drama because his son wants to take over, right? But Hero is kind of and man, you will be so hungry after you watch this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's not, you know what's interesting, and one of the things I really loved about the sushi itself is extremely simple. It's and yet the precision with which even they make the rice is so fascinating.
Yeah, they walk you through like the apprentices that you spend 8 months folding the towels that they give to the customers, because we are not going to let you handle food until you can prove you can fold a towel, and they spend 7 months doing it wrong.
Oh, I'm so hungry. Look, you can watch this and hundreds of other great documentaries right now. .club.com/MacBreak. We invite you to try it for 30 days, absolutely free, and you're going to love it. And I should mention, you can play it on your computer. You can play it on Roku. You can AirPlay it. I mean, it has Chromecast. There's an app for iOS and Android and all of that stuff too. .club.com/MacBreak. Continuing on, there is other news besides Taylor Swift. Somewhere.
I don't believe it.
El Capitan Preview 2. Have you started playing with that, Mr. Rene Ritchie?
I've gotten through installing iOS 9 Beta 2, and I'm working on Watch Beta 2, and then I'm going to get to El Cap 2.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you did a great FAQ on iOS 9. Now, remember, 8.4 is going to come out like soon, like maybe in a week, right? So that we can all get the new music.
Yes.
Will 8.4 have any other changes, or is it just going to add Apple Music?
Little things, but the new music app and Apple Music and all that entails is going to be the big feature.
Okay. Hey, do we know how much iTunes is going to change on the desktop? Have we seen the new iTunes?
I don't think so.
Isn't there a new one to go with this?
Well, define new, Leo.
Well, anything.
There was a pretty recent revamp.
12 is
wasn't it?
12 is new with Yosemite, but I don't know. I'm wishful thinking. I was hoping they might rewrite it
when
entirely.
we see iTunes for iCloud, then we'll be able to get to the future of what iTunes on the desktop should be.
There are still a lot of open questions about Apple Music. Apple is not replacing. It looks like not replacing iTunes Radio. That's going to continue.
I think that if you don't, I forget exactly how it works. I only heard it once, but I think that's the tier for people who aren't in Apple Music.
The free tier.
You basically get that as your alternative.
And you get the new Beats One radio station.
Yes.
The innovative 24/7 radio station featuring 3 disc jockeys in L.A.,
Los
New York,
Angeles, New York, and the UK. Yeah. They all have British accents, so I can't tell who's where.
Beats. Music.
Hello, here we are.
I think the biggest problem with the whole radio concept is that XM isn't very good.
It's horrible.
This is a fundamental. So the thing is that a handful of DJs is not.
No.
I don't know.
It's, if you are still paying, what is it, $15 a month for Sirius or XM, just try Spotify for 5 seconds. The sound quality's better. I guess you have to have enough bandwidth to listen. And there's so many more stations, and it duplicates everything you can get in Sirius and XM, plus thousands of other stations.
I think the Beats One thing will be sort of what Alex was talking about before, though, because those 3 DJs can't carry on 24/7. There's going to be other stuff, and they've spoken about programming already. So it might be Apple actually dipping their toe into what producing at least radio shows is like for them.
Yeah, maybe that's the beginning, huh? Of a new label.
Not a bad point of entry.
So how about, and I'm sorry, we're going to go back a little bit because I still need to understand this. How about iTunes Match? That's not going away.
It's unclear to me exactly how that's going to work, but your iTunes Match content is available to you if you have stuff on there that's not in the streaming platform.
So if I'm paying $10 a month, I figure that includes iTunes Match.
I don't want to say anything because I might be wrong, and I don't think they've released everything yet.
It's not clear
how that's going to work. Yeah.
Okay. Here's what you get with your membership. So if you don't pay, you get the artist feed on Connect, follow artists on Connect. Connect is kind of ping. Listen to Beats One radio station. Listen to Apple Music radio stations with limited skipping. Pay for it. You get unlimited, all of the above plus unlimited skipping. Play and save Connect content. Like Connect content or radio songs. Enjoy unlimited listening from the Apple Music Library, which is, we don't know, but presumably the same size as everybody else, 30 million.
It's a subset of iTunes, not including artists who've opted out of the service.
Like the Beatles. You can buy the Beatles, but you can't stream the Beatles unless you buy the Beatles. And I think if you buy the Beatles, then you can stream the Beatles because it does say add Apple Music content to your library, save for offline listening. Well, it doesn't say, though, does it, what happens to your... So I bought the Beatles on iTunes, or I bought the Beatles and ripped it, and it's in my iTunes. Can I stream it?
I don't believe if it's in your iTunes, but if it's in iTunes Match, I believe that is commingled.
Do I still have to pay for Match?
Until we see specifics, and
we don't know.
And some of the stuff could change because they don't have to. Even if you hear a rumor of it now, it might be different.
It's changing as we speak. It changed on Sunday. Does Apple Music work with iTunes Match? Yes, Apple Music and iTunes Match are independent but complementary. Okay.
Well, licensing rights make it very. I mean, it's a very ginger thing to work around licensing rights.
That's a very good point, because they've made a deal for Match with the record labels. Do they have a new deal? It looks like Match is going to continue, but that's a little annoying. If I'm paying $10 a month for music, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
If you don't want music and you do, I mean, we're getting complaints on both sides. Like some people are terrified that if they don't want Apple Music, that they're going to lose iTunes Match.
Well, that's a good point. All the songs I really want are already in Match, frankly. Yeah. Except for the Taylor Swift oeuvre.
Yeah, I've been trying to understand if Apple is trying to produce one unified system of one unified music product, or whether it's best to simply approach this as they now have 5 different music products, many of which can be used independently of each other and some of which can be used to enhance each other. I think I'm going to have to lean towards the second one, where you assume that you've got 5 different companies, each called Apple, each suing each other for having complementary products, and just pick and choose what you want.
Yeah. Okay, so unknown is the answer.
Yes.
But all will become clear soon.
It should. Minute before midnight.
This magic 8-ball I just shook.
Let's talk about iOS 9. You wrote a great FAQ, Rene Ritchie at imore.com. The answers to all of your questions about iOS 9.
I thought it was going to be quick, Leo, and then 2 days later I was still right.
And it is available, but you have to, is it a public beta now?
No, it's still a developer beta. Okay. The public beta starts as part of the Apple Seed program in July.
El Capitan public beta in July as well?
Yes.
Okay. And your recommendations based on your usage still put it on a non-production machine.
I have the same all the time. If it's beta software, stay away if you don't need it. I mean, some people maybe you want to test software, maybe you're just a curious person or someone who enjoys doing that. But then you've got to take on that responsibility because you lose Apple Care support. The device becomes a developer device. You can't just walk into an Apple store and get and expect service for it. It's opting into a different class of usership. So you should be fully aware of that.
And if iOS 8 works on your device, iOS 9 will.
Yes.
That's the easiest way to know.
Not every feature, but iOS 9 writ large will. And that means binary compatibility, which is the most important thing.
Not on the original iPad. Not on the iPhone 4 or earlier. It will work on the 5th generation iPod Touch.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see iPad 3rd generation as part of that, though I'm curious to see if there's anything that doesn't work. Like, for instance, if that new app switching system doesn't work on the iPad 3, given its lack of application RAM.
Right. We will get it as an update as usual, just as you will get 8.4 as an update as usual. Yep. So you'll, no need to press the update button. it'll alert you. And
the big news there is that because of all the new technology Apple's deploying, they'll be able to make it a much smaller download, so 1.3 gigabytes instead of 4 point something.
So those poor folks who bought the 8 gigabyte iPhones will not be left out in the cold.
Or not just because for that reason.
Right. 1.3 gigs compared to 4.5. That's a big difference. And it's free, of course. Give me the 10 polls, says Rene Ritchie. Here's the 10 polls. Siri, search, Apple Pay, notes, maps, news. News is interesting. Quick type, which is the new keyboard, and multitasking. By the way, it wasn't clear. Is news replacing Newsstand?
Yes. So Newsstand is a pseudo folder. It's not really an app, and there were a bunch of apps contained within it. So when now on iOS 9, that folder is gone, and all those apps are left free to roam the homepage. So you don't get the Magic Magazine covers anymore, but they're like regular apps.
I'd prefer that.
The bigger question is whether those apps are going to stay around, or they're going to shovel their content into. Like, is there going to be a New York Times newspaper app, or are they going to shovel content into news? They'll probably do both for a while, but ultimately we'll have to see.
According to The Verge, correct this if it's not true, Apple will actually delete some apps before the updates just to make room.
So this is if you are incredibly, and apps aren't that big. I mean, if you have a giant epic Unreal Engine first-person shooter, maybe it's pretty big, but they will delete apps, install the update, and then re-download those apps for you. So it should be almost transparent.
You won't know what's going on.
No, that's just part of their new like they're doing a lot of stuff to juggle almost everything now because there's no real advances in a lot of areas. Yeah. A lot of it is just being smarter use of software.
Yeah. Any new Siri features?
Oh yeah, a bunch of them. Siri's interesting. It's got a new interface. It buzzes now like it does on the watch. It has access to photographs. For example, you can say, "Show me the pictures in Petaluma last summer." It's Apple's trying to make it do the proactive stuff the way Google's doing, but the huge difference is they're not a cloud company, so they don't think everything should necessarily has to be on the cloud. So their gamble is they can operate on the cloud stuff like for movies or Wikipedia or information that has to be on the internet, then bring that down to your device and mingle it with your data on the device instead of bringing your data up to the cloud and mingling it there. And they're hoping that devices are either now or soon will be powerful enough that you won't lose much by not having massive amounts of cloud computing behind it, but you will gain from the knowledge that that data, regardless of whether you think anyone uses or abuses your data, you'll know that it's on your device, so nobody can use or abuse it.
That's the big win. The other thing you lose by going that route is, remember that Google has all this machine learning stuff behind it, so that it will actually tag things for you that you never tagged. You can simply say, "Show me shots of the wedding last winter," and even though you didn't tag anything with location or with wedding or anything like that, it just sees women in white, a woman in a white dress dancing. Like, okay, must be a wedding picture. We'll tag it that way.
Yeah, that's like Google Photos that does some of that too.
Oh, I'm saying that's why it's interesting how. I love it when both Apple and Google create the same service, because each is a unique expression of the personality of the company. Yeah. Where here's what you're giving up by here's what Apple said, we would like to do it this way, but we're not the company that wants to do it that way. So here's the feature. Here's what we think is important versus Google saying here's what we think is important. So it's always really. Have you seen
this new Facebook thing with the face recognition and all that? That is wild. Yeah. What do you?
As always, I never ever think that anything that I don't think they're an evil company, but I think that whereas there's at least a level of trust with me and Google that if they are going to match faces or if they're going to do something incredibly clever, my first reaction is, oh, I wonder how that will be useful to me. When Facebook says we've done something really clever, I'm like, oh God, what settings am I going to have to make sure I never changed after this?
We actually, Lisa and I have been having fun because both of us have photos on our phones of each other, and which I guess we've never shared to each other. So what we've been doing is sharing back and forth the pictures. These are the pictures I took of Lisa at a dinner, and what you do is it'll find them, and then it'll share them over. But you're right, that face recognition is a little bit. They're claiming something like 83% accuracy, even if the face is obscured. I mean, they knew that this picture was Lisa.
Yeah.
How did they know that?
They know that babies are full-grown adults on some services.
Yeah.
Google is amazing that way. You can actually have a pick. I was having a conversation with people who were building this, and they showed me, here is a newborn infant from one of our developers, 10 minutes old, and here she is
amazing.
6 years later, and the software is able to. The difference is that I think that now you have the difference between Google and Facebook. Google does face matching; it doesn't do face recognition. It will simply collect all these pictures together. Facebook will not only tag it with a name, but it will also say, "Hi, I saw this picture in your feed. Is that Gern Blanston? Because I want to. And is this location correct?
Yeah.
Was Gern Blanston in this place?
Now that's creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, the line between useful and creepy is very thin. It varies a lot from person to person. So like Andy, I'm really happy that we have different like I've had long conversations with people at Google who think Facebook is really creepy, and it's sort of a weird thing to reconcile that they're both giant internet companies, but they have very different beliefs as well. So I like that we have options depending on our comfort level and feature needs.
Yeah. So iOS 9 public beta in a couple of months, but don't rush off and get it because.
Definitely not on any kind of a primary device. That's for your second Mac and your second the iPad that you're going to take away from your son because you gave it to him when you bought your new iPad last year, but now you want to test iOS 9 and you're going to take it away from him to do that for the beta.
Son.
Speaking of good articles on iMore, I was very grateful, Rene, that you I read the detailed takedown of Zara. Which I barely understood on iMore, and then I read your explanation of what the hell it really means to me.
And we had Nick Arnott do a deep dive.
Nick did a great job, but it was,
The problem with Zara is that it was 4 very different exploits that were lumped together and sort of presented in a way that people should panic about passwords and the safety of data.
Summarize, would you? By the way, I see you're playing Arkham City there on your Mac.
Arkham Asylum seemed like a good reference for the insanity that went around.
I got Arkham Knight early, I guess because it was midnight Eastern last night, and I was up very late. I'm kind of tired playing the Batman on my Xbox One. It's fun. Except it keeps raining, and it looks like they keep it raining the whole time so that everything's shiny, so it looks cool, which is weird. So what do we need to know about Zara?
So Zara, the first thing to know is that it's 4 very different exploits, and most of them don't apply to iOS. A lot of stuff got conflated together in the reporting. So
some's OS 10 and some's iOS.
Yeah, it's predominantly OS 10. So one of them, for example, was WebSockets. And there's a vulnerability in HTML5 that when you communicate over a WebSocket, it may not be secure. So the best practice is not to send sensitive or secure data that way. However, because of things like sandboxing on OS 10, developers have a need to be able to send something from an app to maybe a companion app so it can go to a website plugin. So they would use WebSockets, and because of this vulnerability, that data could then be sniffed. No one could go in and sort of look for your passwords, but they could pretend to be the communications channel, sort of do a man-in-the-middle attack and collect your passwords as they were going through, which is similar to what happened with URL strings, URL schemes on iOS. Because of the way that it works, there's no sort of policing over who can register it. So someone could pretend to be Facebook or pretend to be another app, get in on the URL string, and then as you're sending sensitive information over unsecure channels, listen to that as well. And maybe the best practice would be not to send that stuff. But again, up until very recently with the deep links and backlinks, there was no real good way to send people around, much less transmit data. The only really concerning vulnerability here was in sandboxing, where you could create something that would sort of pretend to be a child process of a sandboxed app and get included into the directory where it could safely look at the data. And that's how they were able to scoop out contents of some libraries. And that's something that Apple has to fix as soon as possible. The sort of other aspect of this was that they managed to get a couple test apps into the App Store to sort of prove these vulnerabilities. And some people panicked about that because the App Store is supposed to be secure. But the App Store can only ever detect things that have happened. It's very hard to predict what people are going to do. So Apple looked at what they did, and now they've got screening processes in place to stop apps from doing this. And there's a lot of ways that apps sort of try to change code or obfuscate code when they're going in. So once that's identified, they can put the prerequisite filters or processes in place to protect against that.
So Apple hasn't fixed these issues. Is there something you recommend we do to protect ourselves at this point?
Well, they've mitigated it by making it very hard to get those apps that specifically try to do this into the App Store now. So there's much less chance of getting one of those apps. The best practice always, I've listened to Steve Gibson for years say this, is don't take stuff from people you don't trust. So if there's an app that looks too good to be true or looks fishy, or you're just used to downloading stuff willy-nilly, just remember that it is always a dangerous world out there. And if it's someone like 1Password or Facebook, absolutely download those apps. But if it's some developer you've never heard of and it wants access to something, or something suddenly pops up that doesn't quite look like Facebook but is supposed to be, then pay attention to that.
So Apple did some server-side stuff. They've blocked these from the app stores for both iOS and OS X. If you get apps from the App Store on either platform, you're fine. You're almost certainly okay. And then be careful about the rest of the stuff. Like LastPass, I can't get from the App Store because of the sandboxing the App Store requires.
I don't think they've patched. I think they patched the Mac App Store. With iOS, it was the URL schemes. And basically the way it works right now is any developer can make any URL scheme they want. So I don't know how they're going to. They might eventually just have to police what URL schemes you can do.
URL schemes are really a risky thing to do. And Apple's relied on those, or the developers on iOS have relied on those a lot.
They're great for links. If you just want to link to a specific part of an application, they're fantastic. If you want to use them to transmit data, then you've got to make... there are things you can do. Like the really smart developers follow a lot of best practices to make sure data gets transited as securely as possible. But unfortunately, and this was, I think, the case with some of the Google exploits last week, is that when developers en masse don't follow best practices, that data suddenly becomes exposed.
Yeah, there's a really great blog post on the AgileBits site blog, but the developers of 1Password basically walk you all the way through what this threat is, and especially considering that 1Password was used as one of the examples of here's how vulnerable this can make at least Mac software. It's not only the perspective of what this exploit can do, but also here's why developers write things the way that they often write things. And then finally saying that if you are concerned about this, go into 1Password settings. And because one of the limitations of this hack is that if it's going to glom passwords that are being communicated between the 1Password app and the browser, it has to launch that malicious app before 1Password can launch its helper app in order to make that happen. So if you just flip a switch to simply say just load that helper app right away as soon as you log in, as soon as you boot, it seems to mitigate the problem. But it's a good read, and it's probably your first point of apart from iMore, of course. So your first point of access to learn about this, I think.
And while I think that it's still in its experimental stage, I think biometrics are going to become very, very important as we continue to worry about our, security. You can only be so secure with, typing in codes. I mean, I think that thinking about how we use our fingerprints, facial recognition, those types of things, I think are something that's going to become more and more important. Where I'd feel better if I said, okay, well, I can't get in unless I put my my thumb on my phone or something like that, or some combination of those things.
I was thinking about that the other day as I was reading about this, that it seems I haven't heard really anything from inside or outside Apple about whether or not Apple's really making progress on this idea of putting biometrics into the computer itself, like putting a fingerprint reader on it. Which, when this was released with the first iPhone, everyone thought that, oh well, obviously this is going to come to MacBooks sometime soon. I don't think that they're dropping the ball by not doing that, but I kind of thought that as a signature thing that solves so many really cool problems, I'm curious about that discussion.
I'm more interested in, I don't even need them to do that. I'm fine with my phone being paired with my computer, and then I just pick up my phone and do it. Like
your watch, as long as your watch is in skin contact.
I mean, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, I have that going on a lot of Android stuff that I have, where the operating system has trusted devices. But there are times when you really want. I don't even care if somebody has pocketed my phone and taken it with it, or waited for me to go to the bathroom and realizing they got 15 minutes to do something fun with my phone. There's something very, very human and tactile and correct about this. Will not happen until I take this thumb here and place it right there, because I have to explicitly say that here is who I'm going to prove who I am, and now that's when the money transfer happens, and that's when the authorization to load this app happens.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is that it could be my phone paired with my computer, and then I put my thumb on my phone, and then the computer just doesn't have to the apparatus to read the thumb doesn't need to be on the phone.
Using the phone as sort of the authorization pad. Yeah, that's interesting. As I was thinking this through, I was thinking how much of this decision is we can't think of a place to put the fingerprint reader that in our minds would not make this device ugly.
I think it's also
Right,
the trusted chain. I mean, like they didn't release the Touch ID API until they'd spent a year trying to harden the chain of trust. And I don't know what that chain of trust. I'm sure someone at Apple does, but I don't know how that chain of trust would work on OS X devices.
It's like they would have to have like another. It's almost if they'd have to have an ARM chip inside the Mac itself, because that seems like that would be the simplest way to have that trusted zone, because they certainly can't have Intel build them a brand new chip with that. And I
think Intel has one, but whether they want to use it or not.
I was trying to think as right this second. I was trying to think. I know that Intel has some hardware like that, but I'm not. But that's the sort of thing I have to actually start researching before, to tie in things that I've read, things I've been told with no. Is that something you actually remember, or something that you just think you understand?
And then how do you pass that? And like, there's a variety of chips in Macs. It's not as uniform as the iOS platform. And how do you pass that along? How do you make sure no one spoofs the tokens that it's releasing? And I'm glad I don't have to solve these problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
we only get to complain when they don't work correctly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an easier role, I think. A couple of quickies. Apple pulls the last non-Retina iOS device, the original iPad mini. That's gone. Interesting article in the Wall Street Journal by Christopher Mims, which no one is giving any credit to, but I thought I'd throw it out to you guys. Why Apple should kill off the Mac.
My question is, everyone complains about link bait, but then when someone writes something like this, it's all we talk about. We don't talk about the 10 great articles that were written.
Forget it. I'm not even going to mention it.
I don't like the word link bait. I disagree with this from start to finish, but I don't know that this was written just to get people angry. It's an interesting question when you realize when you look at we in the past we've discussed that pie graph of here's how much Apple makes off of iOS, here's how much they make off of everything else. I think that if you have no understanding of Apple, even as an outsider, you would wonder why do they keep putting time and effort into this much of the wedge, when it's like we were talking about earlier about how music is, even if they were only making as much money off of the Mac relatively as they were making off of music, it's part of their core identity that they can't. People have not switched completely to phones. They've not switched completely to tablets. Computers that are desktops that run desktop operating systems are part of people's daily lives, and Apple wants to improve the quality of people's lives and also make sure they get their hand in the till. Both of these ideas are very much enhanced by keeping the Mac on the product line, and that says nothing of the fact that it's still a booming business for Apple.
Yeah. Yeah,
I thought he was going to say kill Cafe Macs and have Apple order in, but apparently he was talking about the computers.
I don't know if these are credible rumors, but it is from 9 to 5 Mac's Mark Gurman, who usually is pretty good. Apple Watch 2 with a FaceTime camera, iPhone-free Wi-Fi. What?
Now, Mark is good. Like when he writes these articles, he says that there are multiple prototypes that are always in play, and that plans change. And that's absolutely true. That if we can think, hey, would this be good with a camera? Apple's not going to think, hey, would this be good with a camera? They're going to prototype something with a camera and then test it. Yeah. And then some like Phil Schiller will say, I hate holding my arm up this long. It's as bad as a touchscreen Mac. We're never shipping this. And someone else will argue with them, and eventually they'll make a decision. But
I'm kind of the opinion. I'd like to hear your thoughts. That really, Apple should not release new hardware for a longer time than normal. I don't think this fall or this spring, next coming spring, maybe 2017, because there's so much growth that can happen now that we've got or going to get apps, standalone apps.
I don't know in general, but I think that it would be really wise for Apple to put the Apple Watch on the same sort of schedule as they put MacBooks near the desktop. Because if you train people that there's going to be a new Apple Watch every fall, you lock the people into the story that they didn't ship a new Apple Watch this fall. I wonder what's going on.
Right.
And given that the current design is very, very muscular, maybe at some point it could use a processor upgrade. But this is certainly a design that could last a couple of years, and that's time that people are going to need to take in order to build up the ecosystem, so that there's going to be interest in a second generation piece of hardware. I think that Apple should.
I think you should wait. Let's see what we can do with the existing watch.
Instead of an Apple Watch 2, they did more variety. So, for example, there was a 46 millimeter version in titanium or in platinum or something, and it did happen to have new features, but it was also an expansion of the line.
And it'd also be a way to make we have this gap between a $1,000 watch and a $10,000 watch. There's a lot of people. Yeah. We're not fulfilling the needs of people who want to buy a $5,000 watch, and we don't want to make people feel excluded.
Andy. Huh? It's classist. It's elitist.
Not classy at all. I mean, for heaven's sakes, they should.
What do you like? Have you said you'd been playing WatchOS 2, Rene? How stable is it? Is it cool? What do you think?
I don't really comment on stability because it's a beta, but in general, it seems to me like all the features that they announced really rounded out.
Good.
Like you could see a lot of the stuff was already there in WatchOS 1. It just wasn't everywhere, and this really rounds it out. So things like time travel are everywhere, and you've got the native apps, and you've got different sheets for like they had at WWDC. They had a trash talk sheet for the canned responses, which is magnificent, and that kind of stuff is great. And then the native apps, especially with all the APIs. Yeah, no, that was great because Eliza Block she swiped over, and then all of a sudden you had all these trash talk. Right?
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
It's great, and developers have I forget who said it, but the amount of stuff that Apple exposed over API, like including all the sensors and access to the complications and things. You could see they were sort of logical things for them to do, but to do them this quickly is super impressive to me. And it'd be really interesting to see the only part of me that does want more advanced hardware to come is with the iPhone 3G and the iPad 2. It was such an advance, and what it allowed you to do with apps and everything was so much better that I'm sort of curious to see what developers could do with less restraints sort of on them. But I do think it was really important that they had sort of WatchKit and they learned to program under not the worst, but the most constrained conditions imaginable, because those are best practices that maybe if they'd gotten native apps immediately, they wouldn't have bothered with, and it'll just make them better performance and better experiences.
Yeah. I think that I agree with you, Rene. I think that the limitation wasn't getting the APIs finished. It was we're not going to have the educational materials ready for complications and sensor access ready for another several months yet. So let's not even release that in 1.0. Let's wait until October.
And imagine the joy of us Apple Watch owners that we get almost like a whole new watch in the fall with WatchOS 2.0.
That is a good idea. Because that is a good suggestion, because I paid $400 for this. So if I think that I bought a $200 watch and then another $200 watch,
not so bad.
That seems like that's
not so bad.
For $200, this is a hell of a watch.
We don't know if did Alex get his watch. Did we know this before he left?
I don't have it yet. It's still. I think I'm actually gonna break down and get a different watch because my watch is still. You
can go into the store now. They say and pick them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I may be doing it right after the show.
Yeah. So. Yeah. 2.79 million sold as of mid-June. This is from Slice Intelligence. Slice does that app that watches people's emails. It's probably fairly accurate, I would guess. And that's not a shabby number, given that that's probably more than all other smartwatches combined several times over.
I think the report also said they figured that Apple will have about 50% of the wearable market, and it was a vague. I meant to drill down to see what they're including there, but I believe they're also including fitness bands there too.
Oh, I bet they are.
I was depressed because I read Neil Seibert's piece on it, and he's like, it doesn't matter how much they sell. It matters how closely what they sell matches Wall Street expectations.
Oh, BS.
BS. But I think that what one of the things that becomes very important, again, like the music, like this, is an ecosystem. It's for Apple. It's getting enough people doing all the same things at the same time becomes very, very powerful. Because it means that's where the app developers go. That's where all these other things move. And I think that's the big opportunity for Apple if they can keep on moving down the path.
Also, according to IHS, which is kind of a mixed track record, the entry-level sports band, which sells for $50, costs about $2 and a nickel to make.
The next paragraph so I saw the story go up, and some of our news team was looking at it, and the next paragraph says, or maybe not, we don't know, we have no idea how much this material costs, which made me wonder why they wrote the first paragraph.
Yeah, they're making it up, basically.
What I took from that article, though, is I think it's absolutely doesn't make a difference how much it costs, and it doesn't matter how much profit Apple's making from the bands. What interested me is that 20% of people were buying extra bands, and I think that was the
like Mr. Rene Ritchie. Yeah,
I'm not a good example of anything.
Yeah. So here's of users who bought an Apple Watch, 16% have bought an extra. We'll put the high profit in quotes, high profit margin band. The black sport band, and you know what? This makes sense because I like my Millionaire's Loop. When I work out, I'd really probably prefer a sport band, and they're not expensive. $50, big deal.
Yeah, but is it a coincidence that you're looking at the top three sellers, or it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The top 4 sellers are the 4 cheapest bands you can possibly buy.
No surprise.
Okay, ahead of Pink and
Loop is
Green.
underperforming.
Yeah.
But there might be some place in where they could figure out how much that costs. I mean, I was writing up my review of the thing and trying to get my head around the idea. Do I have to say fluoroelastomer? Can I just say rubber or plastic? and of course, it turns out that fluoroelastomer is actually a generic name for a type of rubber. DuPont actually has a product called Viton that's like that. So it's possible that they could simply say, here's how much this product, if it is indeed a fluoroelastomer with nothing, without any, goldfish sprinkles inside there. There's probably a high and a low at which they could how much they could spend.
It's
for
basically a synthetic rubber.
Well, really good synthetic rubber. It's used. Yeah, I mean, it's used for high. As a matter of fact, if you buy a really expensive car, it's possible that a lot of the gaskets that are inside that car are a fluoroelastomer, like a Viton.
That's right.
Well, and I think that one of the things we miss also is we can look at the raw cost of these things. And I'm not saying there isn't a lot of margin in that band, but what I'm saying is a lot of times when we hear all these cost estimates, and we've heard Tim Cook say they have no idea what they're talking about. I remember sitting on a flight back from Asia this is years ago, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, right when the new touchpad came out for the Mac, without the button. It was the first one that came out that was you just pushed, which we all have now. And I admit I was, beer boarding him a little bit, with drinks. And is
that an official term, beer boarding?
Yeah,
it is now.
Yeah,
I like it.
But with
in the
beer.
circles that Alex travels in, it is an official term.
Amongst all of us CIA agents.
Oh, I was not. Anyway,
I was beer boarding.
You get them drunk, talked about, and one of the things that he mentioned is that 40% of those trackpads failed
wow.
QC. So got produced. So when you look at the actual raw cost, that doesn't take into account that
That's
you're throwing
exactly right.
40%
That's exactly
of them
right.
away.
Think of the number of fluoroelastomer bands sitting on the floor in that Chinese factory, unused.
It's that Josh Lyman term. The second one costs $2. The first one costs $4 billion.
That's got to be one of the least interesting data points that anybody could release, because only Apple can tell you how much it costs, and even if you do know exactly how much it costs, who cares? Unless Apple's going to say, "Oh yeah, you're right. You're sorry. From now on, all watch bands are $5."
Right.
I mean, what difference does it make?
I think that's kind of the reaction to all of these IHS stats. Is good guess. Good guess. Let's take a break. Come back with your picks of the week, my friends. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times, from Rwanda and the Pixel Corps, Mr. Alex Lindsay. The lightning has passed over, and the sun is about to emerge in beautiful Pittsburgh, PA.
Oh, it might actually.
Yeah.
Maybe even before the end of the show.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? And Rene Ritchie from imore.com in Montreal, Canada. We are brought to you today by LegalZoom.com. Lots of reasons why smart business people trust LegalZoom. I did. When we first started the business, I was told by many that you should incorporate, protect yourself from liability. LegalZoom.com. Incorporate Chapter S or C or LLC. Form a nonprofit. They can do that too. Register your trademark to protect your products and services. You can apply for a patent at LegalZoom as well. Over the last 10 years, more than 1 million people, just like you and me, have started with LegalZoom.com. LegalZoom, this is something, look at that, $69 for your last will and testament. Love that too. Maybe you didn't know this. LegalZoom, while they're not a law firm, they do have a network of independent attorneys in most states who can provide you with legal advice. So this is something fairly new at LegalZoom, and I really love this. So if you do want to ask a question, you can ask an attorney at a fixed price. Complete transparency at LegalZoom too. Upfront pricing, customer reviews for everything, unedited, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Make the smart choice for your business. LegalZoom.com. Do it today. And don't forget, if you do, to use the offer code MBW at checkout, and you'll save even more. LegalZoom.com. Promo code MBW. LegalZoom, not a law firm, but you can get independent legal advice from their network of attorneys. LegalZoom.com. Andy Ihnatko, why don't we start with you today?
Mine is a kind of a non-specific pick, but it's kind of an interesting one. We're finally far enough away from the initial launch of the Apple Watch that you can now buy cheap-ass watch bands in all kinds of different places.
That's a CABs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is I shouldn't call it cheap ass because it's Hoko, and as you can see, it is a premium product. So right there on the box, along with things that probably say soy sauce or do not get this tattooed on your butt because it probably means something I don't know what it means.
But they're Apple Watch compatible?
They are Apple Watch compatible. They
Nice.
are this is a $25 red leather buckle.
Oh, I should get that.
That clicks straight into the same lugs. I don't know if this. I don't see the MFI logo on this. They probably just sort of took some measurements and figured it out. We'll be seeing some MFI branded stuff later. Things that are using lugs that have actually been purchased from Apple. But I mean, they slide on and off in exactly the same way. And I mean, this is like $30 compared to how much money for an actual leather band with I'm guessing this is not rose gold, but it's gold toned anyway. I like these a lot. It certainly does sort of explain Apple's thinking a little, or just at this point justify Apple's thinking where they want to be the company selling the $500 steel link bracelet that has the 30-minute video on how they made each individual link out of one solid block of an unobtainium and chipped at it flake by flake, molecule by molecule. But if you want one for $75 that is not poorly made, it's just not as well made as that, you're good. Caveat being that, of course, again, this is less than a $30 bracelet, $30 leather band. It's roughly the quality of what you would get for free with most watches that might cost about $150 or less, which is to say that if I were to wear this every single day, I bet it would start to look kind of baffed up in 2 months, and I bet it would break off in about 8 or 9 months. But that's okay because, again, it costs not a whole lot of money. The idea is that I will still have like my fluoroelastomer rubber plastic bracelet that is my daily wear sort of bracelet. But then on those days, those 2 or 3 or 4 days a month where I need to dress it up a little bit, or maybe if I just want to color coordinate it with the rest of my outfit, I can just simply that easily simply slide this off and in 10 seconds switch to a different band. So I think these are all like really, really good things and definitely worth looking into.
I am going to order one for my trip.
Yeah,
pretty good deal.
The metal link bracelets, there are some that are not well made, but they're most of them, if you spend more than $18 for them, they're not badly made. They're just not as well made as what is clearly Apple makes something that could be sold as a $500 bracelet. Right. But it's not. That doesn't mean that the one that you spend $75 or $80 for is cheap or looks like garbage or it falls apart or it rusts. It's just not a $500 bracelet. The one thing to keep in mind is that if you do buy something stainless steel, realize that Apple is making damn sure that the stainless steel bracelets they sell are the exact same color stainless steel as the actual watch itself. So you might have a slight color or polish difference between the body of your steel watch. I'm a cheapskate, so I have the aluminum, so that's not as big of a problem, but definitely something to think of. But again, for these little $20, $30 bands, you can afford to have 3 or 4 and just swap them in. Yeah.
Rene, Ritchie, got a pick for us?
Yeah, I'll just add to Andy's one quickly that all that stuff is really good. I would also just make sure that you get something where the metal is well coated because not all metals react well to each other. So if you're sticking stainless steel inside aluminum, just make sure it's well coated stainless steel.
What would happen? Would you have a shock?
You get a reaction that kind of degrades the quality of the metal.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, you actually get an electrical sort of communication between the two, and it can discolor one or the other. So.
Yikes.
Yeah, so most good ones won't have a problem, but if you're getting the 3-cent one off the bargain bin, you probably
Wow, that's good to know. What do you got for us, Rene?
I have a couple ones. The first one I'm stealing from Serenity Caldwell, and I don't have my watch on me because it's upgrading, but it's called Zone Play. I have this love-hate relationship with Sonos where I have their speakers everywhere, but they don't really support all the stuff that I use. Like they don't support AirPlay, and there's no watch app yet. But an enterprising developer went and made an app called Zone Play. And because it's not a first-party app, it can't do everything that the Sonos app does, but it does go on your watch, and it does let you sort of skip backwards tracks, go forwards in tracks. You can't rearrange anything, but once your stuff is set up on Sonos the way you want it, it just gives you quick access to like the volume and the skip order that you really want on your watch. So if you have Sonos and you've been dying for watch control, and again, I totally stole this from Serenity Caldwell, so thank you, Ren. This is a great app to do it with. The other thing that I have is the Typo keyboard for iPad. You might remember Typo from the BlackBerry lawsuits because BlackBerry was not happy about the keyboard they made for their iPhone, but they've got a really nice one for the iPad. It's super slim. It has a very, not exactly the way that the Surface does it, but it has a kickstand at the back. So it's got a very good hinge. I think they say it's the same hinge that Apple uses, so that you can adjust the height to whether you're typing or whether you're cooking or doing anything like that. And you can open it up and use it just like a laptop. So you have a full keyboard on the front, and it's got nicely sized keys. They're not full size, but they're good for a netbook. They have better travel than the new MacBook. So if you're a fan of longer travel, they're very clicky. They work very well. It pops right off if you just want to use your iPad like a tablet, the way Apple intended. And it's got, especially coming with iOS 9, Bluetooth keyboards are going to get a big upgrade. So you're actually going to be able to see the shortcuts, and you'll be able to do a command tab to change apps. So in preparation for that, if you're looking for a new keyboard, the Typo is definitely worth a look.
Nice. Is that the same? Is that the same company that did the Typo keyboard?
Yes.
For the phone.
The Ryan Seacrest.
Ryan Seacrest company.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got sued, of course, by BlackBerry and lost.
Yes.
But they found other businesses.
They should have made it like the Palm keyboard. They wouldn't have had a problem.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing to sue and win for, but they did. That's cool.
BlackBerry's Palm for keyboards too. I mean, BlackBerry's famously litigious for their keyboards.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I would, if the iMac or iPad Pro comes out next fall, that would be a useful thing to have for it. That would turn it into a Surface Pro, basically.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, right now, there's a lot of discussion about using the iPad as a primary computer because of all the features coming in iOS 9, like slide over and split view and picture-in-picture. And it's going to be more compelling for more people, and I think a keyboard really rounds that out for a lot of people.
Mr. Alex Lindsay, what do you got for us?
So my first pick is just to kind of look into the past of something that I picked, or I think one of us picked, and we said, oh, it's really cool, and then just to reaffirm it, which is Slack. So if you're a company that's using Slack, I said, oh, this is really cool. I think Rene, were you the one that recommended it when it came out?
Yeah, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
It has taken over my company. I just like no one wants to email anymore. Like people are like, oh, why are you emailing me this? This should be on Slack. Yeah, it's just like it has become like, I mean, just in case you're wondering how deep that goes, it's pretty intense. So anyway, Slack. If you're wondering if we still like it after we reviewed it, yes. And I didn't use it until the very end. I was the last person to actually really start using. I was still using text and everything else, and everyone else was gone. It was like this ghost town that no one was talking to me, and so then I was like, okay, I'll try, but it's so confusing. I got all this stuff, and then suddenly I'm now gone. So anyway, it's really cool. No, but my recommendation today is one that I think will save a lot of people a lot of money, and I know it has for me, and that is the Staples app. Now,
wait a minute, that was easy. Oh, I'm sorry.
The Staples app.
Ka-ching.
So here is why. Yeah. The Staples app is free, but more importantly, it has a feature in it that is very important if you have a Staples nearby. So let me show you. So you see, if we look at this here, you see you've got all these little things here, and the thing that you're going to notice is you'll be really surprised to see that this is $15.99. Now that may be something that is a little bit kind of abrupt because you're used to seeing this be $82 in Staples.
Oh, show off.
Okay,
Alex, what's the weather going to be closer to the coast?
yeah, exactly. Well, no, I don't have the green screen yet. That's coming. We're going to be right
Alex,
back
was that
here,
a flea flicker, or were they doing the nickel offense there?
I love how casually he did that. Humble tech.
So the thing is that what you're going to see here is you're going to have these X's and O's, and this guy.
That looks good.
Price,
that's the best look at Telestrator I've ever seen. Forget the Staples thing.
Took a lot of work.
That is beautiful. Well, what's nice is you have like strokes. It's like you've got a little texture.
It's like Alex has opened up a vein and he's bleeding all over his screen.
It took a lot of work to get to that. Anyway, so
nice.
So anyway, what's important is that when you're shopping at Staples, what's important is for you to have that app. And then what you do with that app is that you load everything you hit this magic button right here. See this little magic button?
That one?
Add to
Okay,
cart?
This there, yeah.
This one right here. This one. You hit add to cart. And so the big thing is that when you do that, you walk up to the Staples cashier and say, I'd like to match your website. And they have to. And so the thing is if it actually, I think, is really great for Staples because it makes me actually want to go there. It's been in the past, I've been like, oh, I'll never buy a cable or I'll never buy, anything major because they're going to just, drive me into the ground. And now that I know that I can go to Staples and get it for the same price that I'd buy it on Amazon, it definitely makes it something that I actually go a lot more. Of course, they're making a lower margin by 5 times, but I save probably $50 or $60 every time I go to Staples. There's a Staples right down the street. That's why I say that. And I'm like constantly like, oh, I need another Ethernet cable. So, and I need it today because, that's the way I am. So anyway, that's Staples app. Just a little thing that hopefully helps people. And
I'm installing that, and I'm installing Zone Play, and I just bought a watch band.
And only tell the company Slack if you want to be the last one and left out.
Actually, we like Slack. We use HipChat internally, which is similar to Slack, but Slack's prettier.
The only thing about Slack that was hilarious to me was at WWDC, there was this big meeting of all these groups that use Slack, and everyone was praising it. But the consensus was the minute someone gets upset, you have to stop using Slack because the lack of emotion will escalate to arguments that are unnecessary all the time.
Yeah.
So the new rule is that if you start getting upset with somebody, you have to switch to Skype or voice or Hangout so that the humanity returns.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Typing can really get you in trouble.
Yes.
Yes. And I will vouch for that with my spouse. We can get in a lot of trouble just by only texting each other or typing at each other. It's really a good idea to talk from time to time so you can see the face and all of that. Can I do a very self-serving pick?
Always.
The brand new Twit website is here. We put it up about a week ago, but I just wanted to remind everybody to take a look. We've ironed out some of the bugs, and we also are aware of some people and things they don't like. For instance, this display of the latest help and how-tos and news and reviews only really shows a handful of shows at a time. We have so many more. We're going to work on that. I'm going to make this latest word be a link to a secret page that I'm going to tell you about right now, which is twit.tv/episodes. We created this filter but never gave you access to it. This is all the episodes chronologically going, left to right and down the page. One of the reasons we made the front page so simple is because we're really working on making it mobile first. And so if you put too many of these tiles on the front page on a small device, it really is kind of unwieldy. The other thing people wanted is more information in this little text here, Tech News Today, 1286. Again, the reason that's so simple is because we didn't want to, just got the show name and number. We didn't want to overburden a mobile device. But if you hover your mouse over it, the tooltip does, in fact, have the full name of the show. So it is very easy to find out what the show is all about just by hovering your mouse over it. And so to answer some people who wanted that. The other thing that has happened, we've fixed the download button. People were complaining about the fact that it was a little difficult to download. Now when you click download options, these are HTML links to the varieties of shows. There is a bug for Firefox, and we're not really sure why this is. In Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer works fine. In fact, in Chrome, if you click the link, it'll start the download, and that's just exactly what you want. On Safari, you might have to right-click and say Save As. And in Firefox, unfortunately, you have to start the playing of, and this is we're going to fix this as soon as we figure out why it's happening. Start the media playing, and then right-click on the playing media and say Save As, and that'll give you the full thing. So if you haven't used our new website, take a look. I put a post on it, and we've put it in the front page here. Welcome to the new Twit website, Learn More, that explains why the site is the way it is and how you can report bugs if you find them and so forth. We think it's a lot better. It's certainly a lot more responsive than the old site, both in terms of popping up more quickly and in terms of being mobile responsive to the page that you're on. There's live here. We are keeping live.twit.tv alive. I know some people are having trouble. Somebody reported they work in the military, and for some reason our new live page is blocked. So we're going to keep the old page. I'm not sure why. We're going to keep the old page running until we figure out what's going on, and maybe forever. This is actually not on the site. This old live.twit.tv is just a standalone kind of one-off site. So there's no reason why we can't keep that there. But the top of the page should give you the information you need. Live shows, if you want to find a show in particular. Links to all the apps. We are going to be working on our own apps at some point. And if you go to more, you can learn more about our API and developer program. We have this site really is not just a site, but most of it, it's like an iceberg. 9/10 of it are invisible to you. The site itself is written in Node.js, runs on Heroku as a Node app, but the Node app is actually getting all of its data from a Drupal backend, they call it headless Drupal backend that provides an API. We're using the API, but so can you. So if you want to make your own site, you can. Just go learn about our developer program and API. You can send us an email to api@twit.tv. We're starting to generate keys, and we'll send keys out. We've got more than 50 people who've requested access to the API. It's a RESTful API using JSON. So if you're familiar with modern web technology, it should be very easy for you to do anything from write a one-liner that downloads every episode of Security Now ever to recreating this web page in black, if that's what you want. You can do it any way you want. Everything on the web page comes from the public API, which is pretty sweet. So there you go. That's it. And we have a much better search, by the way. We're using Apache Solar Search, which is a really good search. So you should be able to find anything you want very quickly. All you have to do, and you've noticed it probably, twit.tv, thanks to the developers at Four Kitchens who put that together. And Jason, we got to figure out a time to do a special. I guess when I come back, we could do a special with the devs and our team and explain kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I know Father Robert wants to do a coding 101 on the API and so forth. So we're looking forward to making this something that you can use more easily. And wait till you see it on your iPhone even. It works great. Hey, thanks, everybody. Thank you to Rene, Ritchie, imore.com, Live Nations, at Rene Ritchie on the Twitter. Always a great thing to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Alex Lindsay, as he travels about from time to time, stops by. We're so glad that you're here.
It was great to be here,
Yeah.
even if I made a fool of myself over Spotify.
Did you? I don't think you did. I missed that part.
I think I did. So here's the thing. I think that what happened is it used to be that it would still share inside of Spotify, and I just got into the habit of it. So the whole thing with
They
Spotify,
listened
I think
to you, they fixed it, and you ignored them.
And then I ignored them and complained
You got
about
a
it
faster
online.
reaction
so
than
I'm
Taylor
just,
Swift.
yeah, exactly.
Alex, you didn't make yourself look foolish. You would be making yourself look foolish if you were to give yourself a bright red Groucho mustache and eyebrows.
Oh, that he wouldn't.
wait.
How would you do such a thing? You couldn't do that. That's not possible.
I would go like this, and I'd go.
Zoom in. Oh my God! What is he doing? This is horrible. I don't.
I can't cut away from this. This is too good.
Sorry, that was fun.
That was awesome.
That was a little Shepherd Ferry moment there. That was amazing. Very talented.
You think you know video, then
He's
Alex
a street
shows you
artist.
What video really is.
Nothing like a good feedback loop.
Yep.
And that's what that was. That was cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
See, I can do it. You know, if you leave it on Leo. See, if you wait,
Put it on me.
See, see, with Leo though, I can. You know, of course now. You know, we can.
I don't know how I show Leo and then show what you're doing. That's the problem.
Oh, right. You can't see that. Oh,
No, there we go.
Then it goes crazy.
That's good. It's getting weirder.
Feedback loop. Yeah.
It's getting weirder.
Yeah.
It's getting weirder.
I really like this, though. This is a really great effect.
Machine image learning loop. Last week.
That is the Gortons of Gloucester fisherman, a.k.a. Andy Ihnatko, in bright yellow today, so you could not mistake him.
I'm not the Gorton's fisherman. I am that guy at the airport who signs you into your Hertz car and shows you that you're in day 31, sir.
Here's the keys. Would you have it washed before I get back? Thank you,
All right.
Andy.
Goat puked in the back, but we think we scraped most of it out. Or we can put you in a mid-size. Never rent to rock people.
Oh, Taylor. Tay-tay.
That's it for this edition of MacBreak Weekly. If you can be here live, that's always fun. We start around about 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC on Tuesdays. If you can't, though, on-demand versions available at the site, twit.tv/MBW, wherever you get your podcasts. We also love it if you come in studio, and we had a great studio audience today. Thank you all for being here. Just email tickets at twit.tv, and we'll try to put a comfy chair out for you. But we only have about 5 of those, so the rest of you get that chair, the black ones. Those aren't nice. I guess that's it. Break time is over. Back to work. Did I do that wrong? After 10 years, you'd think I'd get it right. Break time.
Get back to work because break time is over.
What he said.